There is a kind of pain that doesn't bruise the skin, but it still leaves you aching. It's the pain of staring at silence and trying to translate it into love. The pain of watching someone who once felt close become unreadable, unreachable, almost ghost-like. No fight, no real ending, just distance. Just that cold, shapeless space where warmth used to live. And what makes it unbearable is not only that they pulled away, it's that part of you that keeps whispering, if they missed me, surely they would say something. Surely they would reach out. Surely they would come closer. Surely love would know how to speak. But avoidant people rarely miss you in ways that look like missing. That's the strange part. That's the part no one tells you. Sometimes the clearest sign that they miss you is not intensity, not confession, not a dramatic return. Sometimes it is the silence itself. Not because silence is romantic, not because distance is deep, but because for someone wired to shut down when emotions get too loud, missing you often happens in the only place they feel safe enough to feel anything at all. Alone, after the pressure is gone. And that truth is brutal, because it collides head-on with the way you've been trying to be loved. You keep reaching for reassurance, thinking closeness creates closeness. You keep trying to solve the distance with more presence, more softness, more words, more understanding. You tell yourself that if you explain your heart clearly enough, they will stop running from it. But the more emotionally available you become when they are dysregulated, the more their system feels cornered. Not because you are too much, not because your love is wrong, but because their nervous system does not experience intimacy the way yours does. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Sometimes the very behavior you think proves your love is the behavior that keeps them from feeling their own. Every time you chase, explain, overextend, reopen the door, send the last message, then the "just checking in" message, then the "I just wanted clarity" message, you remove the one thing their system needs in order to register your absence: space. And without space, there is no contrast. Without contrast, there is no missing. Without missing, there is no emotional echo. So, while you are sitting there, breaking yourself open to prove you care, they are staying emotionally numb because your pursuit is doing all the emotional labor for them. You are feeling everything. They are avoiding everything. Until you stop. That is when something strange begins. Because avoidant attachment is not a lack of feeling. It is a fear response around feeling. That distinction changes everything. People often imagine avoidance as cold, detached, careless, almost mechanical. But most of the time, that isn't what is happening underneath. Underneath, there is activation. There is conflict. There is tenderness mixed with dread. There is longing tangled up with alarm. Their body can want connection and fear it at the same time. That's why they can look calm while internally shutting down. That's why they can care and still disappear. That's why they can miss you and not move toward you. When closeness intensifies, the amygdala, the part of the brain that scans for threat, can start treating emotional intimacy like danger. Not because love is dangerous, but because somewhere in their system, closeness got linked to pressure, engulfment, guilt, loss of control, or the expectation that they must perform emotionally when they don't have the capacity to. So instead of melting toward love, their system mobilizes against it. Cortisol rises, their chest tightens, their thoughts get sharp, detached, analytical. They start looking for reasons the connection is wrong, heavy, too complicated, too fast, too much. And the mind becomes very clever when the nervous system wants escape. They'll tell themselves they need freedom. They'll focus on your flaws. They'll become vague. They'll delay replies. They'll convince themselves they've lost feelings. But often, they haven't lost feelings. They've lost access. That is different. They didn't stop caring. They got overwhelmed by caring. And once you understand that, their behavior stops looking random. It starts looking patterned, predictable even. Painful, yes, but not meaningless. The strange way avoidants show they miss you is not through immediate pursuit. It's through delayed emotional recognition. First, they withdraw. Then they regulate through distance. Then the pressure leaves. Then the numbness softens. Then your absence begins to arrive. Not all at once, not dramatically, quietly, in flashes, a song in the car, your name hovering in their search bar, a reflex to send you something funny, then stopping, a strange hollowness at night when distraction runs out, a memory hitting their body before their mind can explain it, the sudden urge to check if you're still available. This is why the core concept you need to understand is silence. Not performative silence, not manipulative silence, not silence as a tactic to make them come back. Silence as emotional non-reactivity. Silence as the refusal to keep flooding the bond with your pain just to force proof. Silence as self-respect. Silence as the moment you stop interfering with what their system can only process in your absence. Because when you keep inserting yourself into the connection, they don't have to confront the loss of you. They only have to manage the pressure of you. That is a completely different experience. Pressure makes them pull away. Absence makes them feel. And if you've spent your whole life believing that love must be maintained through effort, this will feel almost offensive. You will want to do something. You will want to clarify, soften, remind, rescue, fix. You will want to say, I know you care, you're just scared. You will want to prove you are safe. You will want to be the exception. But if you become the emotional translator for someone who refuses to face their own inner world, you do not create intimacy. You create dependency without depth. You create access without accountability. You create a relationship where your anxiety keeps the connection alive, while their avoidance keeps it from becoming real. And that is not love. That is a wound trying to negotiate with another wound. Imagine this. You used to be the one who always reached out first, the one who checked in, the one who brought warmth back into the room after every emotional freeze. You hated the distance, so you kept bridging it. You hated the ambiguity, so you kept filling it. You hated the silence, so you kept translating it into patience. Then one day, you stop. Not in anger, not to punish, not to win. You just stop offering yourself where you are not being held. At first, they feel relief. This is the part people misunderstand. When you stop chasing an avoidant person, the first thing they often feel is relief. More space. Less pressure, less expectation. Their nervous system exhales. And if you don't understand the cycle, you'll panic right here. You'll think, see, I never mattered. They're fine without me. But relief is not the final feeling. It is the first feeling. And once the noise clears, the second feeling begins. Contrast. The good morning text that doesn't come. The emotional access that used to wait for them. The quiet certainty that you would still be there. Gone. And this is where something starts to move. Because what they thought was the problem was not always you. Often, it was the activation they felt around needing you. When that activation settles, they can finally feel what was underneath it. Attachment, longing, curiosity, regret, missing. That is when they start circling. Maybe not with a grand apology. Maybe not with the emotional maturity you deserved. Maybe it's a breadcrumb, a random check-in, a reaction to a story, a song, a question that means more than it says, a memory disguised as casual conversation. Avoidance rarely returns saying, "I was overwhelmed by how much I cared, and now I've processed my fear and I'm ready for secure intimacy." No. They return sideways. They return indirectly, carefully, ambiguously. They test the water without naming the ocean. And if you don't understand the pattern, you will mistake that small return for transformation. Be careful. Missing you is not the same as being ready for you. That may be the hardest truth of all. Someone can think about you every day and still lack the capacity to love you well. Someone can feel your absence intensely and still repeat the same cycle once closeness resumes. Someone can come back because they miss your energy, your softness, your safety, your attention, and still panic again the moment emotional intimacy requires consistency. So, yes, avoidants often miss you, more than they show, sometimes more than you would believe. But missing you does not automatically heal them, and your job is not to become so emotionally fluent that you keep mistaking their internal struggle for relationship potential. Listen carefully. The moment the power dynamic shifts is not when they text you. It is when you no longer need the text to feel whole. That is the real shift. Because as long as your nervous system is arranged around their return, they still own the emotional center of your life. Even in silence, they are controlling the room. Your mind keeps orbiting them. Your value rises and falls based on whether they reach out. Your peace becomes conditional. Your identity becomes relational. Your body waits for a signal. And waiting is one of the most exhausting forms of self-abandonment. So when you stop chasing, something changes in them. But something even more important changes in you. You start coming back to yourself. You start noticing how much energy was being drained into analysis, how many nights were spent rereading fragments, how many mornings began with dread, how often your self-worth was being negotiated in private with someone who would not meet you in truth. You begin to see that your pain was not only about losing them, it was about losing yourself while trying not to. That realization is sobering, because now the silence is no longer just a mystery. It becomes a mirror. It shows you where you have been over-functioning, where you have been confusing empathy with self-erasure, where you have been calling emotional starvation patience, where you have been trying to earn what should be given freely. And when you stop doing that, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Not cold, not cruel, not detached, unavailable for dysfunction. That energy is impossible to fake. Avoidants feel it. At first, they may sense your withdrawal as distance, but deeper than that, they sense the loss of your emotional availability on demand. They sense that you are no longer anxiously reaching toward them. They sense that the old pattern, the one where they could disappear and still find you glowing at the same spot, is broken. And broken patterns create emotional consequences. Now, they wonder. Are you done? Did they lose access? Are you finally seeing what they hoped you wouldn't? Are you moving on? Are you becoming someone they can no longer control through inconsistency? That uncertainty can activate the very attachment they once defended against. Not because you played a game, because you stopped participating in one. But this is where many people sabotage themselves. The moment the avoidant circles back, all the old hope floods in. Dopamine surges, the body lights up, The fantasy reactivates, and suddenly the scraps feel sacred because they arrived after famine. A text feels like proof. A late-night message feels intimate. A half-formed confession feels like progress. And you want to rush in. You want to relieve the tension. You want to make it easy for them to return without discomfort. You want to say, "It's okay. I understand." But if you rush to remove the emotional cost of their absence, you teach the pattern that it can survive unchanged. That is the warning. If you break your own transformation the second they reach back, the cycle resets. If you collapse your boundaries because they finally show a pulse, the lesson disappears. If you confuse longing with readiness, you re-enter the same maze. If you abandon your self-respect for the possibility of being chosen, you will once again be chosen only halfway. And halfway love is one of the loneliest places a person can live. So if they return, let them return to someone new. Not the version of you who over-explains. Not the version who accepts vagueness because at least it's contact. Not the version who betrays their own needs to maintain emotional access. Not the version who can be reached without responsibility. Let them meet the version of you who is calm. The version who does not chase clarity from closed hands. The version who listens more than fantasizes. The version who understands that real intimacy is not measured by chemistry, but by capacity. Because here is the deeper truth beneath all of this. The goal was never to make an avoidant miss you. The goal was to stop missing yourself. Yes, they may think about you when the room gets quiet.
Yes, they may feel your absence after the pressure fades.
Yes, they may replay your warmth when their defenses soften. Yes, they may come back, carrying the ache they could not feel while you were still available. But your life cannot be built around being remembered by someone who could not fully hold you. Your life has to be built around becoming someone who no longer begs to be held by what keeps dropping them. That is power. Not power as control, power as coherence, power as nervous system integrity, power as emotional self-leadership, power as no longer needing to shrink, chase, explain, or perform in order to feel worthy of love. Because the most magnetic thing you will ever become is not unforgettable. It is unavailable to what dishonors your peace. And once that truth lands in your body, everything changes. Now, silence no longer means you are not enough. It means you are no longer translating someone else's confusion into your identity. Now their distance no longer defines your desirability. It reveals their limitation. Now their mixed signals no longer hypnotize you. You see them for what they are, evidence of conflict, not proof of commitment. Now, when they miss you, it no longer means you must reopen the door. It simply means your presence was real. And maybe that is enough. Maybe the deepest closure is not hearing that they cared. Maybe it is becoming the kind of person who no longer needs that confession to move forward. The kind of person who can say, without bitterness, yes, they felt me. Yes, they lost something. Yes, my absence reached them in ways my presence never could. And still, I choose myself. I choose the life that does not require emotional guesswork. I choose the love that does not punish closeness. I choose the peace that does not disappear every time someone gets scared. I choose the version of me that stays. That is the final shift. Not, how do I make them come back? Not, what are they feeling in silence? Not even, did they ever really care? The real question is this: who do you become when you stop chasing what keeps teaching you to abandon yourself? Become that person. The one who can feel deeply without drowning. The one who can love fully without pleading. The one who can be missed without needing to return. The one who no longer confuses someone's inability to receive love with a flaw in the love they gave. That is your freedom. And once you touch that freedom, even briefly, you will never again be impressed by almost. You will stop calling inconsistency mystery. You will stop calling distance depth. You will stop calling scraps connection. You will stop romanticizing emotional unavailability just because it occasionally trembles with longing. You will see clearly, and clear vision is a kind of rebirth. So if they miss you, let them miss you. Let the silence do what your over-explaining never could. Let the absence speak where your pain kept getting ignored. Let the distance reveal what closeness kept disguising. And while they are somewhere trying to understand the shape of what they lost, you keep going. Not hardened, not vengeful, not empty. Whole, more rooted, more awake, more yours. Because in the end, the strangest thing is not that avoidants miss you in silence. It's that your greatest power is born there, too.